Hello Finxters and welcome to a new Pandas tutorial. In this video we will learn about the Pandas merge function. In one sentence, this function is used to combine datasets in various ways. And to get started, we will first of all create two data frames that we will be merging in several ways throughout this tutorial. Therefore, we first import the Pandas library, then we create two data frames df1 and df2. The first data frame contains players' names of a baseball team, as well as the players' respective age. And the second data frame also contains a part of the players' names from the first data frame and these players' position and their throwing speed. And if we print them out, these two data frames, we can see these data frames with their respective column names, player and age for the first one, and player position and throwing speed for the second one. And now we apply the merge function. Therefore, we say pd.merge. I will explain what I'm doing here in a minute. So the first two arguments here are the names of the data frames that we want to merge, and that's df1 and df2. And the third argument is the on parameter that we apply here, and this parameter expects the column names to join on. And we set that equal to player, and this way Pandas merges these two data frames on the player column. And now the merge data frame only contains the players Alice, John and Mary, because these are the only players that are contained in both data frames. So in the merge data frame we don't find Jeremy and Bob because from the first data frame, because they are not contained in both data frames. And this is just an introductory example. We will now see lots of other ways to merge these two data frames. Now we will get to know some more parameters. For this section we will modify the data frame df2 a little bit. The only difference here is actually that we changed the label of the player column to name. So the column label is no longer player, but now it's name. And now we want to merge these two data frames, df1 and df2 again, in the same way that we did before. But we cannot do that like we did before with the on parameter, because we assigned the on parameter to player, and now the data frame 2 doesn't have a player column anymore because we renamed that. And therefore we use the two parameters left on and right on. And I will just do it now and explain more in a minute. So we set the left on parameter to player and the right on parameter to name, to state that we want to, for the merging process, we want to use the player column from the first data frame and the name column from the second data frame. And this way we can merge data frames by columns that have different column labels. That's the whole point of these two parameters left on and right on, to be able to merge data frames with different column labels. And yeah, now the resulting data frame now has the player column and the name column, and since they both contain the same information, namely the player names, we can now just drop that, or drop one of these columns. Therefore we can, to do that, we can assign this to a data frame df, and then we can say we can apply the drop function, which drops a column or a row. We could also drop a row, but in this case we want to drop a column, and we want to drop the name column. And we also have to use the axis parameter for the drop function and set it equal to 1 to state that we want to drop a column instead of a row. And as we can see, the resulting data frame now contains all the necessary columns, but not the name column, because it had the same information as the player column. And now we will see how to merge using different kinds of joins. And we can do so by applying the how parameter. Therefore, we rechange the data frame 2 again. We rename the name column back to player, so it's a bit more easy to join df1 and df2. Also, we add 2 new players, Jane and Mick. So this is how data frame 2 now looks like. We have 2 additional players, Jane and Mick. And yeah, now the player column is again named player and not name. And df1, just to show it, to get a comparison, just looks the same as before. In df1 we have still the player and an age column. And we can also observe that Jane and Mick are unique in data frame 2 and they are not contained in data frame 1. And yeah, now we will see the different kinds of joins that we can perform. We start with the so-called inner join, and here we use the intersection of the keys from both our data frames, and this is how it looks like. So we set again the on parameter to equal to player to specify what column we want to join on, which is again the player column, just like in the initial example. And we set the how parameter equal to inner to state that we want to perform an inner join to get the intersection of keys from both data frames. And the output data frame now contains only the players that occur in both data frames. When we compare that to this merge to the merge that we did in the first section, we can see that it's the resulting data frame is the same. And that's because inner is the default value for the how parameter. And although we changed data frame 2 a little bit and added 2 new players, these players are only contained in data frame 2, so they are not in this resulting merged data frame. And the next type of join that we are looking at is the outer join, and the outer join is the union of keys from both our data frames. Therefore, we perform essentially the same merge as here, but we change the value for the how parameter. And as we can see, the resulting data frame is way bigger than the one that we had before. And this data frame now contains all players from both data frames. So Bob, for example, has no value for position and no value for throwing speed, because he is only contained in the first data frame 1, where we don't get position and throwing speed values. So Bob has only an age value here. And similarly, Jane does not have an age value here because she's only found in data frame 2, which does not provide any age information. But as we can see, we get all the players from both our data frames. And the next merge type we will see is the left join. And here we use the keys from from the left data frame exclusively. So we change again the value for the how parameter and set it equal to left. And this data frame now contains all the players from the left data frame, which is data frame 1 in our case. Thus, Jeremy and Bob have no position and throwing speed values because they are only contained in data frame 1. In the same way, we can perform the right join, which, as you might guess, we're using the keys here from only the right data frame, which is data frame 2. And yeah, the data frame contains all the players from the right data frame, which is df2. And that's why Jane and Mick have no age values here, because they are only contained in data frame 2, which does not provide age information. The last one we will see is a bit special. It's called the cross join. And the cross join creates the Cartesian product from both data frames, while it keeps the order of the keys from the left data frame. It's a bit confusing, and it does not work here. Because we cannot apply the on parameter here. Sorry about that. And as we can see, the resulting data frame is very large. And we can observe that we have two player columns now, player X and player Y. And here each player of data frame 2 is assigned to each player of data frame 1. And since both data frames contain 5 rows, the resulting data frame now has 25 rows in total. The cross join doesn't, we can create this way, we can compare this way each player from data frame 1 to each player of data frame 2. And yeah, the resulting data frame is pretty long. This example doesn't really make sense here. There are other use cases for that, but it's just to show you what's possible with the merge function. And now we will have a look at the indicator parameter. And so when we merge two data frames, it might be useful to gain some information about the source of the merge keys. So whether they were observed only in the left data frame or only in the right data frame, or in both data frames. Therefore, we apply this indicator parameter. So we perform an outer join. Again, we merge on the player column. And we set the indicator parameter to true, because it expects a Boolean variable. And yeah, as I said, we perform an outer join on the player column. And this way, by applying the indicator parameter here and setting it equal to true, we get an additional column that's called underscore merge, with the entries left only, right only, and both. For example, Jeremy gets assigned the value left only because he only appears in the left data frame, df1. And for example, Mary's merge value is both, because she's found in both data frames. So yeah, that was the tutorial. In this video, we learned how to apply the Pandas function merge, and we learned how to perform different kinds of merges using the function's various parameters. And yeah, I hope you liked the video. I hope you learned something, and I see you in the next one.